What would you do if you walked into your home and found your pregnant wife sobbing on the floor? That's exactly what happened to billionaire Marcus Sterling at 11:17 p.m. on a Tuesday night. He expected to celebrate closing a $2.3 billion deal. Instead, he discovered a secret that left him completely speechless. His wife, Elena, had just learned that her best friend, the woman who threw her baby shower, who rubbed her pregnant belly, who she trusted with everything, was carrying Marcus's child. Same due date, same hospital. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane. Marcus didn't even know he was the father. And when his mother walked through the door at midnight, perfectly dressed despite the late hour, Elena realized the affair was just the beginning. The real nightmare was about to unfold. This is the true story of how one woman fought a billionaire dynasty and won. And trust me, you won't believe where this goes. Marcus Sterling's Ferragamo shoes echoed against the marble floor of his penthouse as he stepped off the private elevator at 11:17 at night. The bottle of Dom Perignon in his hand cost more than most people's monthly rent. But tonight it felt justified. $2.3 billion. That was the deal he had just closed. The biggest acquisition of his career. "Elena, baby, where are you?" His voice carried through the sprawling apartment, bouncing off the floor to ceiling windows that showcased Manhattan's glittering skyline. "I brought the good stuff. We're celebrating tonight." Silence answered him. Marcus loosened his Tom Ford tie, frowning. Elena's purse sat on the entrance table. Her keys in the bowl. She was home. So where was she? He walked through the living room with its museum-quality art and designer furniture. The kitchen remained untouched, the marble counters gleaming under recessed lighting. A cold dread started creeping up his spine, replacing the euphoria of his business victory. Elena? He found her in the nursery, the room they had spent weeks preparing together. Soft yellow walls, hand-painted clouds on the ceiling, a white crib still in its box waiting to be assembled. Elena sat curled on the floor beside that unassembled crib, her 7 months pregnant belly pressed against her knees in a position that looked physically impossible. Her whole body shook with sobs so violent they seemed to tear from somewhere deep inside her chest. Her phone lay on the floor, screen still glowing. "Elena!" Marcus dropped the champagne bottle. It hit the plush carpet without breaking. He rushed to her side, hands hovering, afraid to touch her in case she was injured. "Jesus Christ, what's wrong? Is it the baby? Are you hurt? Talk to me." She could not speak. Just kept crying, rocking back and forth, making small, wounded animal sounds that Marcus had never heard from another human being. "Baby, please, you're scaring the hell out of me." He checked her for visible injuries, his hand shaking. "Is the baby okay? Should I call 911? "The baby's fine." Her voice came out raw, destroyed. Relief flooded through Marcus so intensely his knees went weak. "Then what happened? Did someone die? Is it your mother?" Elena looked up at him. Her face was a mess of tears and smeared mascara, her eyes red and swollen. But it was the expression in those eyes that made Marcus's blood run cold. She looked at him like she did not know him, like he was a stranger wearing her husband's face. "I had my appointment today," she whispered. "With Amy, at the hospital." "Okay." Marcus sat back on his heels, confused. "And? What did they say? Is something wrong with—" "Amy pulled up the wrong patient file." Elena's voice cracked. "She was looking for mine, but she clicked the wrong name. And I saw it, right there on the screen." "Saw what?" Elena picked up her phone with trembling hands, pulled up a photo she had taken, turned it toward him. Marcus stared at the medical record on the screen. Patient name, Jessica Lynn Hartley. Obstetric record, gestational age, 28 weeks. Estimated due date, January 15th, the same as Elena's. "I don't understand." But even as he said it, his stomach was dropping. "Jessica is pregnant, Marcus." Elena's voice rose to a scream. "Jessica is pregnant with your baby, the same due date as mine, the exact same." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Jessica, Elena's best friend, her college roommate, the woman who had thrown Elena's baby shower 3 weeks ago. He was genuinely speechless. "That's not possible," he finally managed. That can't be." Don't lie to me. Elena threw her phone at him. It bounced off his chest and clattered to the floor. I called the clinic. They confirmed it. Father listed as MS. Marcus Sterling. She's 28 weeks pregnant. 28 weeks. Marcus caught the phone, hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped it. He looked at the screen again, hoping he had misunderstood, hoping this was some kind of nightmare he would wake up from. Patient, Jessica Lynn Hartley, 28 weeks pregnant. Father, MS, oh God. He sat down hard on the floor. So it's true. Elena's voice went flat. Dead. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Marcus's mind raced, trying to piece together a timeline that made sense. 28 weeks. That was 7 months ago. The company retreat in Aspen. The night Elena had called him, furious because he had forgotten to tell his mother she could not just show up at their apartment unannounced. The night he had gotten blackout drunk at the hotel bar. It was one time. The words came out barely audible. One goddamn time, say. 6 months ago at the company retreat, I was drunk. We'd had that fight about your mother moving in. I was an idiot. One time? Elena stared at him in disbelief. One time and she's pregnant? I didn't know. Marcus heard the desperation in his own voice. I swear to God, I didn't know. She never told me. I ended it the next morning. I told her it was a mistake, that I loved you, that it could never happen again. And you believe she would just disappear? Elena's laugh was bitter, broken. That there would be no consequences? She said she understood. Marcus reached for her hand. She jerked away. She said she had made a mistake too. She was your friend. I thought she would respect. My friend, Elena's voice dripped with venom. Right, the friend who's been coming to our dinner parties, who threw me a baby shower, who rubbed my belly and told me I was glowing while she was carrying your child. Once, Marcus insisted weakly. It was only once. That's all it takes. Elena tried to stand, gasped in pain, her back, the stress on her pregnant body. Marcus instinctively reached to help her. Don't touch me. She slapped his hand away hard enough to sting. Don't you dare touch me. She managed to get to her feet, one hand braced against the wall, the other cradling her belly. Tears still streamed down her face, but her expression had gone cold, distant. That scared Marcus more than the screaming had. Where are you going? He asked. Elena pulled out her phone. I called your mother. She's on her way. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. You called my mother? Why would you? Because I need someone from your family who will tell me the truth. Elena's voice shook. Because I need to know what my options are. Because I don't have anyone else. Lena, wait. Marcus stood, panic rising. Panic, yes. Let's talk about this, just us, before she gets here, please. My mother, she'll... The elevator dinged. Both of them froze. Catherine Sterling entered the apartment like she owned it, which technically she did. The penthouse belonged to the Sterling Family Trust, which Catherine controlled. She wore a Chanel suit despite the late hour, not a single platinum blonde hair out of place. Her makeup was perfect. Her expression was cool, assessing. It was past midnight, but she looked like she was attending a board meeting. Elena, darling, Marcus. Catherine's heels clicked against the marble as she walked toward them. I came as quickly as I could. Elena moved toward her mother-in-law, desperate for an ally. Catherine, thank God. I don't know what to do. Did he tell you? Catherine sat gracefully on the nursery's window seat, crossing her legs. He didn't need to. You told me on the phone. Jessica Hartley is pregnant. You believe Marcus is the father. It's not believe. Marcus's voice came out harsh. She saw the medical records. It's confirmed. Catherine's expression did not change. Yes, I'm aware. The room went very still. Elena stared at her mother-in-law. You're aware? Of course, darling. Catherine smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her skirt. I've known for months. The floor dropped out from under Marcus's feet. What? Catherine ignored him, keeping her gaze on Elena. Sit down, dear. You're upset. It's not good for the baby. You knew? Elena's voice rose to a shriek. And you didn't tell me? Tell you what? Catherine's tone remained maddeningly calm. That my son made a foolish mistake? That some little social climber trapped him? What good would that have done? Marcus stepped forward, his voice shaking. Mother, what the hell are you talking about? You knew Jessica was pregnant with my child? Catherine finally looked at him, her expression almost bored. Marcus, darling, don't play stupid. We discussed this at Thomas's office last month. The trust fund restructuring, the provisions for both children. Marcus felt like he was drowning. We never discussed anything about Jessica. Catherine pulled her phone from her Hermes bag, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward him. You signed off on the amendments. See? Your signature. Right there. Marcus looked at the document on her screen. His signature sat at the bottom, bold and clear. But he did not remember signing anything about Jessica or another baby. I sign dozens of documents every week, he said slowly. I thought this was for the quarterly distributions. You thought wrong. Catherine put her phone away. Elena's voice came out barely above a whisper. What amendments? Catherine turned to her, and for the first time that night, she smiled. It did not reach her eyes. Oh, Elena, don't look so stricken. This is actually good news for you. You see, the Sterling family has always believed in contingency planning. What does that mean? It means that both children, yours and Jessica's, will be provided for equally under the family trust. Both will be heirs to the Sterling fortune. It's quite generous, really. Elena stared at her. I don't care about the money. I care that my husband cheated on me, and you covered it up. Catherine stood, her voice hardening for the first time. Don't be dramatic. You care about the money. Everyone cares about the money. That's why you married him in the first place. That's not true. Please, Catherine's laugh was cold. You were making $60,000 a year as a nurse, living in a studio apartment in Queens with 2 roommates. Marcus met you at a hospital charity gala, and you saw your ticket out. Don't stand in my living room and pretend you're some tragic heroine. Tears started streaming down Elena's face again. I loved him. You loved what he could give you. Catherine moved closer. And I don't blame you for that. It's smart, but don't insult my intelligence by pretending you're heartbroken over some moral principle. That's enough, Marcus finally found his voice. Elena, don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Catherine rounded on him. You don't get to speak. You created this mess with your weakness. Getting drunk, sleeping with your wife, his best friend. Jessica isn't. She's a yoga instructor who rents a studio apartment in Williamsburg and drives a 10-year-old Honda. Catherine's voice cut like a knife. Yes, Marcus, she's beneath this family, just like Elena was before you married her. The cruelty in her tone made Marcus flinch. This was his mother at her worst, calculating, cold, treating people like chess pieces to be moved around a board. Catherine turned back to Elena. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to calm down, go to bed, and in the morning we'll have a civilized conversation about how to manage this situation. Both babies will be born, both will be raised in appropriate circumstances, and life will go on. Elena's voice came out steady for the first time. I want a divorce. The word hung in the air like a shaman waiting to explode. Catherine laughed, actually laughed. No, you don't. Watch me. Catherine reached into her bag again and pulled out a manila folder. She placed it on the changing table with deliberate care. Before you make threats you can't keep, let me refresh your memory about the prenuptial agreement you signed 4 years ago. She slid the document across the surface. Elena picked it up with shaking hands. Page 14, Section C, Paragraph 3, Catherine recited from memory. The infidelity clause. If either party commits adultery and seeks divorce, the offending party receives nothing and forfeits all claims to marital assets. Elena flipped through the pages frantically. Good, he cheated. I get everything. Page 18, Section F, Paragraph 7. Catherine's smile widened. Any divorce filed within the first 10 years of marriage results in immediate forfeiture of all assets unless you can prove extreme and unconscionable misconduct. A single affair doesn't qualify. Even 2 or 3 affairs don't qualify. The bar is very, very high. Elena kept reading, her face getting paler with each paragraph. It says, her voice broke, It says if I divorce before 10 years, I get nothing. No money, no property, no. Exactly. Catherine looked satisfied. You would leave with what you came with. Nothing. Well, nothing except a baby you'd have to raise on a nurse's salary, assuming you could even find a hospital willing to hire you after being married to Marcus. Most places would consider it a conflict of interest. Elena looked up at Marcus, betrayal written across her face. You knew about this clause? I didn't read it that closely, Marcus admitted miserably. My father and I have the same prenup. I just assumed it was standard. You assumed correctly, Catherine interrupted. It's a sterling family standard. My father used it. My grandfather used it. It protects us from fortune hunters who marry in, then try to take half when things get difficult. Elena stood, the prenup clutched in her hand. She walked toward the elevator on unsteady legs. Where are you going? Marcus asked. To my mother's house. Elena, be reasonable, Catherine started. Elena turned, and the look on her face made even Catherine take a step back. Reasonable? Your son got my best friend pregnant while I was carrying his child. You covered it up for months, and now you're threatening me with a prenup I barely remember signing because I was so in love with him I would have signed anything. I'm done being reasonable. She stepped into the elevator. The doors started to close. Marcus moved to follow. Catherine grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Let her go, she said quietly. She'll be back. Marcus jerked his arm away. How could you do this? How could you know Jessica was pregnant and not tell me? Because you would have handled it badly, Catherine said calmly, as you're handling it now. Jessica's pregnant with my child and you didn't think I had a right to know? We'll discuss this in the morning. Go to bed. I'm going after Elena. If you do, Catherine's voice went deadly quiet, I'll cut you off tonight. Every credit card, every bank account, every asset. You'll have nothing by sunrise. Marcus froze at the elevator, his hand on the button. Catherine walked toward the guest room. That's what I thought. Go to bed, Marcus. We have a lot to discuss tomorrow. She closed the door behind her with a soft click. Marcus stood alone in the nursery, surrounded by the pieces of the life he thought he had been building. The unassembled crib, the stuffed animals, the mobile with little yellow ducks that played a lullaby. His phone buzzed, a text from Elena. Don't follow me. Don't call me. I need to think. Marcus sank down onto the floor where he had found his wife sobbing 20 minutes ago. He put his head in his hands, and for the first time since he was a child, Marcus Sterling cried. Elena's mother opened the door of her small Queens apartment at 2:47 in the morning. Diane Walsh took one look at her daughter's face and pulled her inside without a word. They sat at the kitchen table, the same one Elena had done homework at as a child. Diane made coffee even though it was the middle of the night. Some rituals were more important than sleep. Tell me everything, Diane said. So Elena did. She told her mother about finding the medical records, about Marcus's confession, about Catherine's revelation that she had known for months, about the prenup she did not fully remember signing, the one that would leave her with nothing if she filed for divorce. When Elena finished, Diane sat back in her chair. She was quiet for a long moment. That manipulative bitch, she finally said. Don't mom me. Diane's voice was fierce. I told you 4 years ago that family was poison. But you were in love, and he was handsome and rich, and I thought maybe you'd be the exception. I thought maybe love would be enough. I was so stupid. Fresh tears started. You weren't stupid. You were 28 years old and he made you feel like a princess. That's not stupid. That's being human. Diane reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. But we're not going to let them destroy you. I can't afford a divorce. According to that prenup, I'd get nothing. I'd be raising a baby alone on a nurse's salary, if I could even go back to nursing after being out for 7 months. Then we don't divorce, Diane said firmly. Not yet. Elena looked up confused. What? You've got 7 weeks until that baby comes. We use that time to build a case, document everything, find a lawyer who can tear that prenup apart, and we find out what the hell Catherine Sterling is really up to. How do we do that? Diane's smile was grim. You think you're the only nurse I know? I worked at Mount Sinai for 20 years before the factory. I still have friends there. We're going to find out everything about Jessica Hartley's pregnancy, and I have a feeling there's more to this story than Marcus sleeping with your friend. Elena wanted to believe her mother, wanted to believe there was a way out of this nightmare. But she had seen Catherine's face tonight, the cold calculation, the absolute confidence that she controlled every piece on the board. She's too powerful, Elena whispered. Catherine owns everything. The apartment, Marcus's trust fund, probably half of New York. How do we fight that? We fight smart, Diane said, and we fight dirty if we have to. You said your friend Amy accidentally pulled up Jessica's file? Yes, she was mortified. She could lose her job for violating patient privacy. Amy's not going to get in trouble, but I want to talk to her. There might be more in that file than just a due date. Elena's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then put it face down on the table. Marcus? Diane asked. His mother. Diane raised an eyebrow. Elena flipped the phone over to her. The text message read, "We need to talk. My office, 10 a.m. Come alone. Catherine." Are you going? Diane asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell. And the other part, Elena put her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter move. The other part is scared. What if she's right? What if I can't support this baby on my own? What if the prenup really is that ironclad? Which is exactly what she wants you to think. Diane stood up. You're exhausted, you're pregnant, and you've had the worst night of your life. We're not making any decisions tonight. Get some sleep. In the morning, we'll figure out our next move. Elena let her mother lead her to her childhood bedroom. The walls still had posters from high school. The bookshelf still held her nursing textbooks. It felt surreal to be back here. 7 months pregnant with a billionaire's baby, her marriage in ruins. She lay down on the narrow twin bed and closed her eyes. But sleep would not come. Instead, she thought about the last 4 years. Meeting Marcus at that charity gala, the way he had made her laugh, the way he had seemed different from the wealthy men she usually encountered at the hospital. He had asked about her work, actually listened when she talked about her patients. He had not seemed to care that she drove a 10-year-old car or that her apartment was barely bigger than his walk-in closet. Or had she just seen what she wanted to see? Elena had been raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs. She had put herself through nursing school with loans and scholarships. She had been proud of her independence, proud that she did not need anyone to take care of her. And then Marcus had swept into her life and offered her a fairy tale. Private jets, a penthouse in Manhattan, designer clothes, a Black American Express card with no limit, charity galas and gallery openings in weekends in the Hamptons. It had been intoxicating, but it had also been isolating. Her nursing friends had slowly drifted away, unable to relate to her new life. The Sterling family friends looked down on her working-class background. Catherine had made it clear from the beginning that Elena was an outsider who had married above her station. Jessica had been her lifeline. Her college roommate, her best friend, the one person who knew her before she became Mrs. Marcus Sterling, the one person she could be herself with, except Jessica had been sleeping with her husband. Or had she? Elena sat up in bed. Something about Marcus's story did not make sense. He said it was one night in Aspen, one drunken mistake. But the medical records showed Jessica was 28 weeks pregnant. Elena was 28 weeks pregnant. They had conceived within days of each other. What were the odds of that? Elena grabbed her phone and opened her calendar. The Aspen retreat had been in early April. She had conceived in late March. She knew the exact date because she and Marcus had been trying for a baby for months, tracking her cycle carefully. If Jessica had conceived from that night in Aspen, she would be a week or 2 behind Elena. Not the exact same gestational age, unless Marcus had slept with Jessica before Aspen, unless he had been having an affair for longer than he admitted, or unless something else entirely was going on. Elena opened her text messages, found the thread with Jessica. The last message was from 3 weeks ago. Can't wait for Sunday. I'm bringing those cupcakes you love. XOXO. The baby shower. Jessica had thrown her a baby shower, had rubbed her belly and cooed about being Auntie Jess, had given her a onesie that said, Mommy's Little Miracle, all while pregnant with Marcus's baby. The rage that flooded through Elena was so intense it made her dizzy. She wanted to scream, to throw her phone across the room, to drive to Jessica's apartment and demand answers. Instead, she typed a single message. I know. She sent it before she could second-guess herself. 3 dots appeared immediately. Jessica was awake, probably had been awake all night, wondering if Elena had found out. The response came through. Can we talk? Please, I can explain. Elena stared at the message. Part of her wanted to hear Jessica's explanation, wanted to understand how her best friend could betray her so completely. But a smarter part, the part that sounded like her mother, knew better. No, Elena typed back. Stay away from me. Stay away from my family. If you try to contact me again, I'll file a restraining order. She blocked the number before Jessica could respond. Her phone rang immediately. Marcus. She declined the call. It rang again and again. Finally, she turned it off completely. In the silence of her childhood bedroom, Elena made a decision. She would go to Catherine's office in the morning, but she would not go alone, and she would not go unprepared. She would go to war. Sarah Morrison's law office occupied the 32nd floor of a midtown high-rise. The walls were decorated with framed courtroom victories and photographs of Sarah with various politicians and celebrities. Behind her desk, her law degree from Columbia hung next to a smaller frame that held a quote, "Well-behaved women seldom make history." Elena liked her immediately. Coffee, tea, water. Sarah gestured to the leather chairs across from her desk. She was a striking woman in her late 40s, with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that missed nothing. Water, please. Elena's hands were shaking slightly as she sat down. Diane sat beside Akbishamorn. Sarah poured 3 glasses from a carafe, then settled into her chair and pulled out a legal pad. Your mother gave me the basics over the phone, but I want to hear everything from you. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. So Elena told the story again. The medical records, Marcus's confession, Catherine's revelation, the prenup. Sarah listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. When Elena finished, she sat back and tapped her pen against her lips. Well, she said finally, this is quite possibly the most elegant piece of legal manipulation I've seen in years. Can you break it? Elena asked. Maybe. It depends on several factors. Sarah pulled the prenup toward her, flipping through the pages with practiced efficiency. First, we need to establish whether you signed this under duress or coercion. Did anyone pressure you? Were you given adequate time to review it with your own attorney? Elena tried to remember. It had been 4 years ago. She had been so in love, so excited about the wedding. Marcus's lawyer explained it to me. He said it was standard for wealthy families, that it protected both of us equally. Did you have your own lawyer review it? Yes, I think so. Catherine insisted. She paid for the lawyer. Sarah's eyebrows rose. She paid for your lawyer? She said it was a wedding gift, that she wanted to make sure I was protected. Did this lawyer explain Section F, Paragraph 7, the clause that leaves you with nothing if you divorce within 10 years? Elena shook her head slowly. I don't remember. I don't think so. I remember asking if the prenup meant Marcus could cheat and I'd have no recourse, and the lawyer said there was an infidelity clause that protected me. Which there is, Sarah said, but it's functionally meaningless with the 10-year restriction. The infidelity clause only applies after a decade of marriage. Before that, you need to prove extreme and unconscionable misconduct. Like what? Physical abuse, serious mental cruelty, criminal activity. A single affair, even multiple affairs, wouldn't qualify unless accompanied by other factors. Diane leaned forward. What about reproductive coercion? What if Catherine arranged this whole thing? Sarah's eyes sharpened. Explain. Diane pulled out her phone and showed Sarah the photos she had taken at the hospital. Jessica Hartley's medical records. She had IVF 6 months ago. The procedures were paid for by the Sterling Foundation, Catherine's charity, and look at the sperm donor information. Sarah studied the images, her expression growing more interested with each one. Anonymous sample 447, donor match, family member, provided by Sterling Reproductive Medicine. We think Catherine used Marcus's sperm without his consent, Elena said, to impregnate Jessica. The night Marcus thinks he slept with her in Aspen, we don't think anything actually happened. Or if it did, it didn't matter. Jessica was already pregnant. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. If we can prove that, this case becomes very different. Reproductive coercion is a serious crime. So is genetic material theft. But the evidence here is circumstantial at best. What do we need? Diane asked. Proof that Catherine arranged the IVF without consent from all parties. Proof that Marcus's genetic material was used without his knowledge. And ideally proof that Jessica was coerced or manipulated into participating. Sarah looked at Elena. Do you think Jessica would testify against Catherine? Elena thought about the text messages. Jessica's immediate response. I can explain. I don't know. Maybe, if she's scared enough. There's another problem, Sarah said. Even if we prove all of this, breaking the prenup doesn't solve your immediate issue. You're 7 months pregnant. You need a place to live, money for expenses, a plan for when the baby comes. Catherine controls the Sterling family trust, which means she controls your access to funds. So I'm trapped. Not necessarily. Sarah pulled out a small device from her desk drawer. It looked like an ordinary pen. New York is a one-party consent state. That means you can record any conversation you're part of without the other person's permission. I need you to record every interaction with Catherine, Marcus, and Jessica from this moment on. Elena stared at the pen. That feels wrong. So is what they're doing to you. Sarah's voice was firm but not unkind. Elena, I'm going to be very direct with you. Catherine Sterling is one of the most powerful women in New York. She has unlimited resources, connections at every level of government and business, and absolutely no moral compass when it comes to protecting her family's interests. If you're going to fight her, you need to be willing to fight dirty. How dirty? I need evidence, recordings, witnesses, documents, anything that proves Catherine manipulated you into signing that prenup, that Marcus's infidelity was part of a larger pattern, or that Catherine is unfit to have any control over your child. The prenup says any child born during the marriage is part of the Sterling family trust, Elena said. What does that mean? Sarah's expression grew grim. It means that even if you win custody in a divorce, Catherine controls the trust that funds your daughter's life. Education, health care, living expenses, everything goes through the trust. And as trustee, Catherine has veto power over how that money is spent. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. So even if I leave Marcus, she still controls my daughter's future? Unless we can prove that the prenup was signed under fraudulent circumstances, or unless we can get Catherine removed as trustee, which requires proving she's unfit. Sarah leaned forward. Catherine went to great lengths to maintain control. That tells me she has something to hide. We need to find out what that is. Elena took the recorder pen, testing its weight in her hand. What if she finds out I'm recording her? Then we deny it. But more importantly, we make sure we get what we need before she has a chance to realize what's happening. Sarah pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. This is a private investigator I work with, former FBI, completely discreet. I want him looking into Catherine's financial dealings, the Sterling Foundation, and anything else that might give us leverage. How much is this getting to cost? Elena asked quietly. She had about $8,000 in her personal account, money from birthday gifts over the years, the small amount she had managed to save from her nursing salary before she married. Don't worry about the money right now, Sarah said. I have a personal interest in this case. What kind of interest? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her desk and pulled out a photograph. It showed a younger woman who looked remarkably like Sarah, smiling at the camera with a baby in her arms. My sister Amanda. 10 years ago, she married into a wealthy family, not Sterling level, but wealthy enough. When the marriage fell apart, they used the exact same tactics Catherine is using on you. They planted evidence of an affair, manufactured financial impropriety, and ultimately had her declared an unfit mother. She lost custody of her daughter and spent 5 years fighting to get her back. Did she? Elena asked. Eventually, but it destroyed her. She lost everything, her career, her savings, her relationship with her daughter. By the time we won in court, the damage was irreversible. Sarah's voice was hard. Catherine Sterling was peripherally involved in that case. Her lawyer, Thomas Hayes, advised the family on their strategy. I've wanted to take her down for 10 years. You're giving me that chance. Elena looked at Diane, who nodded encouragingly, then back at Sarah. What do I do next? You go to that meeting this morning, you record everything, and you don't let Catherine see that you're building a case. Sarah's smile was sharp. From this moment on, you're playing the long game. Catherine thinks she has you trapped. Let her keep thinking that while we gather evidence. She wants me to come alone. Then you go alone, but you keep that recorder running the entire time. Sarah stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Elena, I won't lie to you. This is going to be hard. Catherine won't go down without a fight. But if you're willing to do what it takes, we can win. Elena stood as well, tucking the recorder pen into her purse. I'm willing. Good. Call me the second you leave that meeting. I want to hear everything. As Elena and Diane left the office, Elena felt something she had not felt since finding those medical records. Not quite hope, but something close to it. Determination. Catherine Sterling's office was exactly what Elena expected. All glass and steel and intimidating modern art. The reception area alone was probably bigger than Diane's entire apartment. A receptionist who looked like a model directed Elena to wait in a conference room with a view of Central Park. Elena sat in one of the leather chairs, her hand in her purse, fingers wrapped around the recorder pen. She had turned it on in the elevator. Catherine entered at precisely 10 o'clock, followed by a man Elena didn't recognize. He was in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit, carrying a briefcase. Elena, thank you for coming. Catherine sat at the head of the table. This is Thomas Hayes, my attorney. Thomas nodded curtly. He did not offer to shake hands. I wasn't told anyone else would be here, Elena said carefully. Thomas is part of the family, Catherine said smoothly. Anything we discuss here will remain confidential. Can I get you anything? Water? Tea? I'm fine. Catherine studied her for a moment. You look tired, dear. Rough night? I slept at my mother's. Yes, I assumed as much. Marcus was quite distraught when he realized you'd left. Catherine's tone suggested she found this amusing. He wanted to come with me this morning. I told him this conversation needed to be between us. Why? Because we're both intelligent women who understand how the world actually works. Catherine folded her hands on the table. Marcus is emotional right now. Guilt, shame, panic, all very unhelpful when trying to resolve a delicate situation. You and I, however, can speak frankly. Thomas opened his briefcase and removed a folder. He slid it across the table to Elena. What's this? Elena asked. A proposal, Catherine said. I had Thomas draw it up this morning. It addresses your concerns while protecting the family's interests. Elena opened the folder. The document inside was titled Separation Agreement in Parenting Plan. She started reading, her hands beginning to shake. The agreement proposed that Elena and Marcus would separate but not divorce. Elena would move out of the penthouse but would receive a monthly stipend of $20,000 for living expenses. When the baby was born, custody would be shared 50-50. The child would remain part of the Sterling family trust. In exchange, Elena would sign a non-disclosure agreement preventing her from discussing the circumstances of the separation or anything related to the Sterling family. She would also waive any future claims to marital assets. This is insane, Elena said quietly. It's generous, Catherine corrected. $20,000 a month is more than you'd make as a nurse. You'd be able to raise your daughter in comfort without working. While Marcus stays married to me, which means he can't marry anyone else, and I can't marry anyone else either. For 6 more years, Thomas interjected. After the 10-year mark passes, you can file for divorce and negotiate the terms of your settlement. 6 years of my life on hold while Catherine controls every aspect of my daughter's upbringing. Elena looked at Catherine. Why? Why go to all this trouble? Catherine's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. Because family is everything, Elena. The Sterling name, the Sterling legacy, it's all I have, and I will not allow it to be destroyed by scandal. You mean you won't allow anyone to find out what you did to Jessica? The room went very still. Thomas's eyes narrowed. I'm not sure what you're implying, Mrs. Sterling. Lena kept her gaze on Catherine. Jessica didn't seduce Marcus. You arranged for her to be impregnated with his sperm. The IVF records prove it. Catherine's composure finally cracked. Just for a second. Then the mask slid back into place. I have no idea what you're talking about. The Sterling Foundation paid for her IVF treatments. Anonymous donor, family member match. You stole Marcus's genetic material from the fertility clinic. That's an interesting theory, Catherine said coldly. Do you have proof? I have medical records that show Jessica underwent IVF 6 months ago using a Sterling family member's sperm, which proves nothing about consent. Catherine leaned forward. Marcus signed in consent forms, allowing family member access to genetic material for reproductive purposes. It's standard Sterling family protocol. I'm sure you signed something similar when you were undergoing fertility treatments. Elena's mind raced. Had she signed something like that? She remembered so many forms at the clinic, signing over and over while the doctor explained procedures and risks. Even if Marcus signed something, Jessica didn't consent to having his child, Elena said. Jessica requested the procedure, Thomas said. She came to Mrs. Sterling asking for assistance with fertility preservation. The foundation provides grants for such things regularly. Fertility preservation or IVF? The distinction is immaterial, Thomas said. Miss Hartley was fully informed and consented to all procedures. Catherine stood, walking to the window. Let me tell you a story, Elena. 4 years ago, before you and Marcus got engaged, I had a very frank conversation with him about his future. He was 34 years old, unmarried, showing no inclination towards starting a family. The Sterling line was at risk of dying out. She turned back to face Elena. So I told him it was time. Time to find a suitable wife and produce an heir. He resisted at first. He'd always been a romantic, wanted to marry for love rather than duty. But I helped him understand the importance of legacy. You're saying he only married me because you told him to? I'm saying I encouraged him to take his responsibilities seriously. And then, miraculously, he met you, a nurse, young, healthy, presumably fertile, from a working-class background, which meant you wouldn't have the arrogance of women from our social circle. You seemed perfect. The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But Elena forced herself to stay calm, to keep Catherine talking while the recorder captured every word. But then you started having trouble conceiving, Catherine continued. Months went by, a year. We tried fertility treatments, and I began to worry that perhaps I had been wrong about you, that perhaps you weren't the solution I'd hoped for. So you decided to create a backup plan, Elena said slowly, using Jessica. I decided to ensure the continuation of the Sterling line. Catherine's voice was cold, matter of fact. If you couldn't provide an heir, someone else would. Jessica was convenient, young, healthy, already close to the family. She was desperate for money, struggling to make ends meet on her yoga instructor salary. I offered her a solution that benefited everyone. Everyone except me and Marcus. You were still trying. I didn't know if you'd succeed, and I couldn't afford to wait and hope. The Sterling family doesn't survive on hope, Elena. It survives on planning and decisive action. Thomas cleared his throat. Mrs. Sterling, perhaps we should... It's fine, Thomas. Catherine sat back down. Elena deserves to understand the full picture. You see, dear, when you did manage to conceive, I was delighted. But I was also pragmatic. First pregnancies at your age carry risks. Miscarriage, stillbirth, developmental problems. Having Jessica pregnant as well was simply insurance. An heir and a spare, as they used to say in royal families. Elena felt sick. You played God with people's lives. I ensured the family's future. There's a difference. Marcus doesn't know any of this. Marcus knows what he needs to know. He's aware Jessica is pregnant with his child. The rest is unnecessary detail that would only upset him. Elena stood, clutching the folder with the separation agreement. I'm not signing this. Then you'll leave here with nothing, Catherine said calmly. The prenup is ironclad. Even if you divorce Marcus tomorrow, you won't get a penny. At least this way, you and your daughter are provided for. I'd rather live in my mother's apartment than take your money. Don't be stupid. Think of your daughter. Do you really want to raise her in poverty out of some misguided sense of pride? Elena walked toward the door. I'll take my chances. Elena, Catherine's voice stopped her. If you walk out that door without signing this agreement, I will make your life very difficult. The embezzlement case is just the beginning. Elena turned slowly. What embezzlement case? Thomas pulled another folder from his briefcase. Over the past 6 months, $2.3 million has been transferred from the Sterling Foundation account to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The account is registered under the name Diane M. Walsh. You're a signatory on the foundation account. Elena's blood ran cold. That's not possible. I never transferred any money. I barely even look at the foundation accounts. We have IP logs showing the transfers originated from your home computer, Thomas said. We also have security footage from Chase Manhattan Bank showing you making one of the wire transfers in person. I've never been to that bank. I don't even know whether you did it or not is irrelevant, Catherine interrupted. What matters is that we have evidence that will hold up in court, evidence that will destroy any custody claim you might make. You set me up. I protected my family. Catherine's voice was steel. Now you have a choice. Sign the separation agreement and this all goes away. The embezzlement investigation disappears. You get your monthly stipend, your daughter grows up in comfort and security, or refuse, and I'll have you arrested for felony embezzlement and wire fraud. You'll spend the rest of your pregnancy in jail, and when that baby is born, she'll be taken into state custody until I can secure permanent guardianship. Elena's hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the folder. You can't do this. I already have. Catherine stood. You have 48 hours to decide. Sign the agreement and this nightmare ends. Refuse and I'll destroy you. Elena stumbled toward the elevator. She made it to the lobby before her legs gave out. She sat on a bench outside the building, gasping for air, one hand on her belly. Her daughter kicked, strong and insistent, as if to say, I'm here. I'm counting on you. Elena pulled out her phone with shaking hands, called Sarah. I have it, she said when Sarah answered. I have everything. Elena made it 3 blocks from Catherine's office before the panic attack hit. Her chest tightened, her vision blurred. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel her daughter kicking inside her and know with absolute certainty that Catherine Sterling would take her baby away. A stranger helped her to a bench, asked if she needed an ambulance. Elena shook her head, unable to speak. She just sat there trying to breathe, trying not to fall apart completely on a Manhattan sidewalk. When she could finally move, she called an Uber to take her to Sarah's office. She made it as far as the elevator in Sarah's building before her legs gave out again. This time, she didn't get back up. Elena woke up in Mount Sinai Hospital with monitors beeping around her and an IV in her arm. Amy stood beside her bed, adjusting equipment with practiced efficiency. Hey, Amy said softly when she saw Elena's eyes open. Welcome back. You gave us a scare. The baby is fine, heart rate's good, movement's normal, but your blood pressure was dangerously high. You collapsed in an office building, security called 911. Elena tried to sit up. Amy gently pushed her back down. You're not going anywhere. Doctor's orders. We need to monitor you for at least 24 hours. If your BP doesn't come down, we might need to induce labor. I'm only 30 weeks, which is why we're doing everything possible to keep that baby in there. Amy pulled up a chair and sat down. Elena, what happened? The paramedics said you were having a panic attack. Elena closed her eyes. Where did she even start? Catherine Sterling happened. Over the next hour, Elena told Amy everything. The affair, the prenup, the recording, Catherine's confession, the embezzlement, frame up. Amy listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker. That evil bitch, Amy finally said. I'm sorry, I know she's your mother-in-law, but she is an evil bitch. Don't apologize. Amy was quiet for a moment. Then, Elena, I need to tell you something. About Jessica's pregnancy. Elena looked at her friend. What about it? When I pulled up her file by accident, I didn't just see the due date. I saw the whole chart, the IVF records, the procedure notes, everything. And the sperm sample used for her IVF came from Sterling Reproductive Medicine's long-term storage. It was a sample that had been frozen for over a year, from before you and Marcus started trying. I don't understand. It means Catherine didn't just decide to do this after you started having trouble conceiving. She'd been planning it for years. That sperm sample was in storage before Marcus even met you. The words took a moment to penetrate Elena's exhausted brain. When they did, she felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. You're saying Catherine had Marcus's sperm frozen years ago? Before he was even married? Before he was engaged? Before he'd even met you, probably. Amy leaned forward. Elena, this wasn't about you failing to conceive. This was never about insurance or backup plans. Catherine was going to do this regardless. She was always going to make sure she had control over Sterling heirs. Plural. Why? I don't know, but if I had to guess, control. Catherine seems like the kind of person who needs absolute control over everything in her life. Having multiple grandchildren from different mothers, all dependent on her financially. That's ultimate control. A horrifying thought occurred to Elena. How many samples does she have in storage? Amy's expression told her everything. I don't know for sure, but the clinic notes reference multiple vials from multiple collection dates going back at least 5 years. Oh my God. There's more. Jessica's consent forms have some unusual clauses. I couldn't read all of it because the chart locked me out after a few minutes. But what I did see mentions something about additional gestational carriers as needed and future reproductive rights. Elena felt bile rising in her throat. She's planning more. After Jessica, after me, she's going to keep doing this. Keep creating Sterling babies to control. That's my read on it. The door opened. A doctor Elena didn't recognize entered, followed by Catherine Sterling. Elena's heart rate spiked. The monitors beeped a warning. What is she doing here? Elena tried to sit up. Amy pressed a hand to her shoulder. Mrs. Sterling, you need to calm down. Get her out! The doctor, a man in his 50s with cold eyes, approached the bed. Miss Sterling, I'm Dr. Whitmore. I've been asked to consult on your case. By who? Your mother-in-law. Given your mental state and the stress you're under, I'm recommending a psychiatric evaluation. I don't need a psychiatrist. I need her to leave. Dr. Whitmore made a note on his tablet. The emotional lability, the paranoid accusations, the panic attacks, these are all signs of prenatal psychosis. It's not uncommon in high-risk pregnancies. I'm not psychotic. She framed me for embezzlement. She stole my husband's sperm. I have recordings. You've been recording people without their knowledge? Dr. Whitmore looked at Catherine, then back at Elena. That's actually a symptom of paranoid thinking. The belief that you need to gather evidence against people who are trying to help you. Amy stepped between the doctor and Elena's bed. I'm sorry, but who are you? I've never seen you on staff here. I'm a consulting specialist in high-risk obstetrics and psychiatry. Mrs. Sterling asked me to evaluate her daughter-in-law. Why, I'm her primary nurse, and I'm telling you that your presence is distressing my patient. You need to leave, both of you. Catherine spoke for the first time. Nurse Chen, I understand you're trying to help, but Elena clearly needs professional psychiatric intervention. The hallucinations, the false accusations. She's not hallucinating, Amy's voice rose. You're the one who should be evaluated. Coming into a hospital room to terrorize a pregnant woman. I'll thank you to remember who you're speaking to. Catherine's voice was ice. I'm on the board of this hospital. One call from me and you'll lose your license. Then make the call, because I'm not letting you anywhere near my patient. For a long moment, the two women stared at each other. Then Catherine smiled. We'll see what hospital administration has to say about this. She turned to Dr. Whitmore. Write up your evaluation. I'll have Thomas file for an emergency psychiatric hold. They left. The second the door closed, Elena grabbed Amy's arm. She's going to have me committed if she gets a judge to sign a psych hold. I know. Amy was already pulling out her phone. I'm calling security. I'm putting a note in your file that you're not to have any visitors except immediate family, and Catherine Sterling is specifically excluded. Then I'm calling your lawyer. It won't be enough. She'll find a way. Then we get you out of here. Amy looked at the monitors. Your BP is coming down. The baby looks stable. If I can get the attending to sign off on a discharge, we can have you out of here in a few hours. Where would I go? I can't go back to the penthouse. My mother's apartment isn't safe if Catherine knows where it is. I have a friend. She has a house in Connecticut. She's out of the country for a month. You could stay there while you figure out your next move. Elena felt tears starting. Amy, you could lose your job for this. I'm not letting that woman destroy you. You're my friend. Amy squeezed her hand. Let me make some calls. Just rest, okay? I've got you. As Amy left the room, Elena stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, she had been Elena Sterling, wife of a billionaire, living in a penthouse, planning for her first child. Now she was Elena Morgan, broke, hunted, about to lose everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Please talk to me. I know you're in the hospital. I'm coming there right now. Elena stared at the message. Part of her wanted to see him, wanted him to hold her and tell her everything would be okay, wanted to believe that somewhere under his mother's manipulation, there was still the man she had fallen in love with. But another part, the part that was learning to survive, knew better. She typed back, Don't. Your mother was just here with a psychiatrist trying to have me committed. If you really want to help me, keep her away from me. Tell me everything you know about her plans. The response came within seconds. Meet me alone tonight. I'll tell you everything. I swear. Elena stared at the message. It could be a trap, or it could be her only chance to find out what she was really fighting against. She typed back, Where? Marcus's text gave her an address in New Jersey, a private airfield. He said he had arranged a plane to Montana, to a friend's ranch where they could hide while Sarah built a case against Catherine. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that he was finally standing up to his mother, finally choosing his wife and daughter over his family's money and power. Sarah warned her not to go, said it was too risky, that Catherine might be using Marcus to draw her out. But Elena was running out of options. Amy had managed to get her discharged, but it was only a matter of time before Catherine found a judge willing to sign a psychiatric hold order. So at 2 a.m, Elena stood on a freezing tarmac in New Jersey, 7 months pregnant, carrying a single suitcase with everything she had managed to grab from her mother's apartment. Marcus waited by a small private jet, the engines already warming up. You came, he said when he saw her. I don't trust you, Elena said flatly, but I'm out of choices. Marcus flinched but nodded. I understand. I don't trust myself either. He gestured to the plane. We should go. I don't know how much time we have before my mother figures out where we are. Elena started toward the plane, then headlights cut across the tarmac. No, Marcus whispered. Multiple SUVs pulled onto the airfield. Catherine emerged from the lead vehicle, followed by Thomas Hayes, 2 police officers, and Jessica Hartley. Jessica was visibly pregnant, probably 6 months along. Tears streamed down her face. She looked terrified. Catherine approached them calmly, as if she were arriving at a dinner party rather than intercepting a midnight escape. Going somewhere? Marcus stepped in front of Elena. Get back on your plane and leave us alone. I'm afraid I can't do that, Catherine nodded to Thomas, who stepped forward with a folder. Elena Morgan Sterling, Thomas said formally. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent. That money was planted, Elena's voice cracked. You framed me. Ms. Sterling, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Marcus turned to the police officers. This is bullshit, and you know it. She never stole anything. My mother is setting her up. Sir, step back, one of the officers said. He moved toward Elena with handcuffs. Wait! Jessica's voice rang out across the tarmac. Wait, please! Everyone turned to look at her. She was sobbing, her whole body shaking. I'm so sorry, Elena, Jessica said. I never wanted any of this. Her voice broke. She told me Marcus knew. She told me you both wanted this. She said it was okay. Catherine's expression finally cracked. Jessica, be quiet. No, Jessica rounded on Catherine, her face twisted with rage and fear. I'm done lying for you. I'm done being your puppet. She turned to Marcus. That night in Aspen, nothing happened. You were passed out drunk. Catherine drugged your drink. She had hotel security carry you to your room. Then she called me and told me to get in bed with you. She took photos. She showed them to me later and said, if I didn't cooperate with her plan, she'd tell everyone you raped me. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus stared at Jessica, then at his mother. What? Catherine's mask finally slipped completely. Pure rage twisted her features. You stupid girl. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Jessica pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I kept everything, every email, every text, every bank transfer. I kept it all 'cause I was scared. She handed the phone to one of the police officers. She paid me $50,000 to do IVF with Marcus's sperm. She paid me $25,000 a month to stay quiet. And she promised me Elena would be okay. That this was just about having a backup heir in case Elena's pregnancy had complications. The officer took the phone, scrolling through it with increasing interest. I didn't know about the embezzlement, Jessica continued, looking at Elena. I swear, I didn't know she was going to frame you. When I saw it on the news, I panicked. I called the police because I couldn't let her destroy you like that. Elena stared at her former best friend. Jessica had betrayed her, yes, but she was also a victim. Catherine had manipulated both of them. The officer turned to his partner. We need to take both Mrs. Sterlings in for questioning. Don't be ridiculous, Catherine said coldly. I'm Catherine Sterling. I'm not going anywhere with you. Ma'am, we have evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, reproductive coercion, and possibly assault. The officer's voice was firm. You need to come with us. I want my lawyer. You can call your lawyer from the station. The officer moved toward Catherine. Please don't make this difficult. For the first time in her life, Catherine Sterling looked genuinely shaken. She turned to Thomas. Fix this. Thomas was already on his phone. I'll have you out within the hour. As the police led Catherine away, she looked back at Elena. The hatred in her eyes was absolute. This isn't over, Catherine said quietly. Marcus watched his mother being placed in a police car. Then he turned to Elena, tears streaming down his face. I didn't know, he said. I swear to God, I thought I had cheated. I thought I was the monster. My own mother. Elena wanted to comfort him, wanted to tell him it would be okay, but she couldn't. Too much had happened. Too much trust had been broken. You're still not forgiven, she said quietly. I know. Marcus wiped his eyes. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make this right, starting now. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Dad, it's me. I know it's late, but I need you to do something. I need you to file for divorce from Mom tomorrow morning. And I need you to take control of the family trust before she gets out of jail. All Elena could hear a man's voice on the other end, shocked, questioning. Because she destroyed 3 women's lives to play God with the Sterling bloodline, Marcus said. And if we don't stop her now, she'll keep doing it. Please, Dad, for once in your life, stand up to her. A long pause, then Marcus smiled slightly. Thank you. He hung up and looked at Elena. My father has copies of all of Catherine's financial records. Every illegal donation, every bribe, every payoff. He's been keeping files for 20 years, waiting for the courage to use them. He's taking them to the FBI tomorrow. Why now? Elena asked. Because seeing you standing there 7 months pregnant, about to be arrested for something you didn't do, something my mother did, finally woke him up. Marcus's voice broke. He said he should have protected me from her years ago. Should have protected all of us. The police officers finished taking Jessica's statement. One of them approached Elena. Ms. Sterling, we're going to need you to come in and give a statement as well, but you're not under arrest. The warrant was based on fraudulent evidence. The DA will drop the charges. Elena nodded, numb. It was over, or at least this part was over. Jessica approached hesitantly. Elena, I know you'll never forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know I'm signing over custody of the baby to Marcus. I'm not ready to be a mother, especially not like this. What will you do? Elena asked. Move to California, start over, try to become the person I should have been. Jessica's voice was small. I hope someday you can understand that I thought I was helping. She told me you were sick, that you couldn't carry to term, that this was insurance for the family. I was stupid and desperate, and I let her manipulate me. You should have told me the truth. I know. I should have done a lot of things differently. Jessica started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, he really does love you. Marcus, he was devastated when he thought he'd cheated. He hated himself. Don't let his mother destroy what you two have. Then she was gone, walking to a waiting cab, leaving her life in New York behind. Marcus and Elena stood alone on the tarmac. The plane still waited, engines running. Where does this leave us? Marcus asked quietly. Elena looked at him. Really looked at him. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, his eyes red from crying. But for the first time since they'd met, he looked real. Not the polished billionaire heir, not the mama's boy puppet, just a man who had made terrible mistakes and was trying to fix them. I don't know, Elena said honestly. I don't know if I can forgive you, if I can trust you again. Your mother destroyed my life, and you let her. I didn't know what she was doing. But you should have. You've lived with her for 38 years. You knew what she was capable of, and you chose to stay blind because it was easier than standing up to her. Marcus nodded slowly. You're right, I was a coward. So what now? Marcus pulled a folder from his jacket, handed it to her. Divorce papers. I signed them. You get full custody, the penthouse, and $50 million. No string. No prenup enforcement. You're free. Elena stared at the papers. Why, Bishop? Because you deserve better than me. You deserve a husband who protects you, not one who sleeps through while his mother destroys your life. His voice broke. I'm hoping that someday, maybe, you'll let me be part of our daughter's life, not as your husband, just as her father, if I can earn that right. Elena looked at the divorce papers, then at Marcus. Supervised visitation once a week. We'll see how it goes from there. Relief and gratitude flooded Marcus's face. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. Yes, Elena agreed. It is. 6 months passed like a fever dream. Catherine Sterling's arrest made international headlines. The media had a field day with the scandal. Billionaire matriarch arrested for reproductive coercion, fraud, conspiracy. Every news channel ran the story on a loop. The FBI's investigation expanded rapidly once Robert Sterling handed over his files. 20 years of illegal activity, political bribes, money laundering through the Sterling Foundation, tax fraud, wire fraud, and at the center of it all, the reproductive coercion plot that had destroyed multiple women's lives. Jessica testified against Catherine as part of a plea deal. 2 years probation in exchange for her cooperation. She moved to San Diego and, as far as Elena knew, never looked back. Robert Sterling filed for divorce and took control of the family trust, freezing Catherine out of all financial decisions. He died of a heart attack 3 months later. His will left everything to Elena and her daughter. Marcus testified against his own mother. His testimony was damning: years of manipulation, control, and psychological abuse. The prosecutors built their case carefully, methodically. Catherine's lawyers fought hard, but the evidence was overwhelming. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Elena sat in the courtroom every day, her daughter Charlotte in her arms. She wanted Catherine to see what she had tried to destroy. Wanted her to see the baby girl who would inherit everything Catherine had fought so hard to control. On the final day, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Catherine sat motionless at the defense table, her face a mask of stone. Only her hands betrayed her, white-knuckled, gripping the table's edge hard enough to hurt. Judge Maria Rodriguez, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at Catherine with undisguised disgust. Mrs. Sterling, in my 30 years on the bench, I have never seen such a calculated, systematic destruction of human lives for personal gain. The judge's voice was hard. You manipulated your own son. You violated the bodily autonomy of multiple women. You fabricated evidence to frame an innocent person. You treated human beings like chess pieces to be moved around at your convenience. Catherine opened her mouth to speak. The judge cut her off. You will not speak. You have spent enough time manipulating people with your words. Judge Rodriguez leaned forward. This court finds you guilty on 14 counts, including fraud, conspiracy, wire fraud, reproductive coercion, and assault. I hereby sentence you to 12 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Catherine's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we request bail pending appeal. Request denied. Mrs. Sterling will be remanded to federal custody immediately. The judge's gavel came down hard. This court is adjourned. Bailiffs moved to lead Catherine away. She stood with dignity, refusing to look at anyone. But as she passed Elena's row, she stopped. For a long moment, the two women stared at each other. This isn't over, Catherine said quietly. Elena stood, Charlotte in her arms. She looked Catherine directly in the eyes. Yes, it is. You have nothing left. No money, no power, no family, no legacy. You destroyed everything you tried so hard to protect. And you did it to yourself. Catherine's mask finally cracked completely. Rage and pain twisted her features. She opened her mouth to respond. The bailiff took her arm firmly. Let's go, ma'am. They led her away. Elena watched until Catherine disappeared through the courtroom doors. Then she let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for months. Sarah appeared at her side. How do you feel? Empty, Elena said honestly. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated, but I just feel tired. That's normal. Justice doesn't always feel the way we think it will. Sarah looked at Charlotte, who was sleeping peacefully. But you won. You and your daughter are safe. That's what matters. Marcus waited in the hallway outside the courtroom. He testified 2 weeks ago and hadn't returned until today. He looked different, thinner, older, worn down by guilt and grief. Hey, he said quietly as Elena approached. Hey, I'm glad it's over. Me too. They stood in awkward silence. Over the past 6 months, Marcus had kept his promise. He visited Charlotte every week, always supervised by either Elena or Diane. He brought books and toys. He talked to his daughter, even though she was too young to understand. He was trying. But the distance between him and Elena felt insurmountable. Too much damage, too much betrayal. Even though intellectually Elena knew Marcus had been a victim too, emotionally she couldn't bridge that gap. The divorce papers are final, Marcus said. You should receive your copies next week. Okay. I bought a house in Montana, near that ranch I was going to take a year, but I'm moving there next month. Elena looked at him in surprise. Montana? I can't stay in New York. Too many memories, too much press. I need to start over somewhere. No one knows the Sterling name. He smiled slightly. I got a job with a construction company. They don't care about my trust fund. They just need someone who can swing a hammer. Marcus Sterling, construction worker. I never thought I'd see the day. Neither did I. His expression grew serious. I know I can't fix what I let happen. Can't take back the pain my mother caused you. But I want you to know I'm trying to be better for Charlotte. For you, if you'll let me. Elena shifted Charlotte in her arms. The baby stirred but didn't wake. I don't know if I can forgive you, Marcus. Maybe someday. But right now, I'm just trying to focus on being a mother. I understand. Can I still visit? Once a week? Yes, but in Montana, you'll have to make the trip here. I'm not moving my daughter across the country. I'll drive out every weekend if I have to. Elena believed him. Whatever else Marcus was, he loved his daughter. That much was clear. How's your dad? Elena asked carefully. Marcus's face fell. His funeral is next week. I know you probably don't want to come. I'll be there. He gave me everything at the end. The least I can do is say goodbye. Thank you. They stood together a moment longer. Then Marcus leaned in and kissed Charlotte's forehead gently. See you next week, sweet girl. He walked away down the courthouse corridor. Elena watched him go, feeling something that might have been sadness or might have been relief. Maybe both. 1 year later, Elena stood in the kitchen of her farmhouse in Montana and watched the sunrise paint the mountains pink and gold. Charlotte sat in her high chair, enthusiastically destroying a banana, while babbling nonsense syllables that sounded almost like words. The farmhouse wasn't much: 3 bedrooms, old hardwood floors, a wraparound porch that needed fixing. But it was hers, paid for with Robert Sterling's inheritance, far enough from New York that the press rarely bothered her anymore. Diane lived in the guest house on the property. She'd sold her Queens apartment and moved out west to be closer to her granddaughter. Some days Elena wondered if her mother missed the city, but Diane insisted she'd never been happier. More? Charlotte held up her banana-covered hands. All gone, Elena said, wiping her daughter's face with a washcloth. But we have eggs. Want eggs? Hey, Elena laughed. Charlotte's vocabulary was growing daily. Soon she'd be talking in full sentences, asking questions, wanting to know about her father and grandmother, and all the complicated history Elena wasn't sure how to explain. But that was a problem for future Elena. Present Elena just wanted to enjoy this perfect morning with her daughter. A car pulled up the drive. Elena checked the window, Marcus's truck, right on time. He'd kept his promise about weekly visits. Every Saturday morning, he made the 4-hour drive from his place near Billings. Sometimes he stayed an hour. Sometimes Elena let him stay longer. Slowly, carefully, they were building something that might eventually become trust. Marcus got out of the truck carrying a bag from the bookstore. He'd brought more books. He always brought books. Elena opened the door before he could knock. Hey, hey. He looked tired but happy. How's my girl? Covered in banana and ready to cause trouble. Marcus grinned and headed straight for Charlotte's high chair. There's my beautiful troublemaker. What have you been up to? Charlotte waved her arms excitedly. Eggs? You had eggs for breakfast? That's my smart girl. He lifted her out of the chair, not caring about the banana residue. Uncle Marcus brought you new books. Want to read? Charlotte grabbed his beard and pulled. Marcus laughed. Lena watched them together, her daughter and her ex-husband. No, not ex-husband yet. The divorce was final, but the wounds were still healing. Maybe they always would be. Over the past year, Marcus had transformed. Gone was the polished Manhattan air. The man in her kitchen wore jeans and work boots, his hair too long, his hands calloused from construction work. He looked more real than he ever had in his Armani suits. He was seeing a therapist twice a week, working on setting boundaries, understanding how his mother had controlled him, learning to make his own decisions. It was slow work, hard work, but he was committed. Coffee? Elena offered. Please. I was up at 5 to make the drive. She poured 2 mugs. They sat at the kitchen table while Charlotte played with her blocks on the floor, occasionally looking up to make sure both adults were still there. How's work? Elena asked. Good. We're building a community center in Billings. It's satisfying, creating something tangible instead of just moving money around on spreadsheets. You like it? I love it. My supervisor says I might make foreman next year if I keep at it. Elena tried to imagine Catherine's reaction to that news and failed. Catherine's world didn't include sterling men working construction. How's your mother? Marcus asked quietly. Elena always knew this question was coming. It still hurt every time. She's okay. Calls once a week. She's taking classes through the prison education program. That's good. Catherine had spent the last year in federal prison. She'd be there for 11 more. Elena had visited twice, once right after sentencing, once on Charlotte's first birthday. Both visits had been strange, difficult. Catherine refused to apologize, refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. But she'd held her granddaughter and cried, which was the closest Elena had ever seen her come to showing real emotion. Elena's phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. News just broke. Thomas Hayes arrested on RICO charges. Looks like they're finally going after Catherine's whole operation. Elena showed Marcus the text. He read it and nodded. Good. He knew what she was doing. He enabled all of it. Do you hate her? Elena asked suddenly. Your mother? Marcus thought about it for a long time. I don't know. Sometimes. But mostly I just feel sad. She had everything, money, power, intelligence. She could have done so much good. Instead, she destroyed people because she was terrified of losing control. Well, people do terrible things when they're afraid. Yeah, they do. Charlotte brought Marcus a book, her current favorite, about a caterpillar who eats too much. Again? Marcus asked. We read this last week. Hey, all right. Can't argue with that logic. He picked Charlotte up and settled into the armchair by the window, started reading in the silly voices he'd developed for each character. Charlotte giggled and pointed at the pictures. Elena watched them and felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not yet, but maybe the beginning of it, the possibility of it. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Sterling? This is Detective Brooks with the NYPD. I wanted to inform you that we've made arrests in the embezzlement case. 4 people, including Thomas Hayes and a banker at Chase Manhattan. They've all agreed to testify that Catherine Sterling orchestrated the entire scheme. Thank you for letting me know. There's something else. We found evidence that this wasn't Catherine's first time framing someone. We've reopened 3 cases from the last 20 years where women were accused of financial crimes against Sterling family interests. Your testimony helped break this whole thing open. Elena sat down hard. 3 other women? At least 3, possibly more. We're still investigating, but I wanted you to know you didn't just save yourself. You saved other people she would have destroyed. After the detective hung up, Elena sat staring at her phone. 3 other women, maybe more, all destroyed by Catherine's manipulation, all blamed and punished, while Catherine walked away untouched until Elena had fought back. Marcus noticed her expression. Everything okay? Elena told him about the call, about the other victims, about how far back Catherine's crimes apparently went. Marcus looked sick. I lived with her for 38 years and never knew. She was good at hiding it, or I was good at not seeing. He stood, still holding Charlotte. I should go. You probably need... Stay. The word came out before Elena could stop it. Marcus froze. What? Stay for lunch. Diane's making pot roast. Charlotte loves when you stay. And you? Elena met his eyes. I don't hate having you here. It wasn't much, but it was something. A crack in the wall she'd built between them. Marcus smiled, tentative and hopeful. I'd like that. The farmhouse had become a refuge. Over the following months, Marcus's weekly visits stretched longer. 1 hour became 3. 3 became all day. Eventually, Elena stopped checking the clock, stopped counting the minutes until he would leave. Charlotte turned 15 months old. She was walking now, babbling in that almost language toddlers speak. She called Marcus Dada and lit up whenever his truck pulled into the driveway. Elena tried not to read too much into that. Spring came to Montana with wildflowers and endless blue skies. Diane planted a garden. Marcus fixed the porch and built Charlotte a swing set. Elena started taking online courses to renew her nursing license. Life wasn't perfect. Elena still had nightmares about Catherine. Still woke up in cold sweats, convinced someone was coming to take Charlotte away. Still struggled to trust, to let her guard down, to believe that good things could last. But it was getting easier. One Saturday in May, Marcus arrived with news. I got a letter from my father's estate lawyer, he said over coffee. Dad left you a letter. It was in his safety deposit box with instructions to deliver it 1 year after his death. He handed Elena an envelope. Her name was written on the front in shaky handwriting. Elena opened it carefully. Dear Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good riddance. I lived too long as a coward and don't deserve anyone's grief. I need you to understand something that I should have told you when you married Marcus, but I was too weak. Catherine is not capable of love. She's capable of obsession, possession, control, but not love. I thought I could change her. Thought if I was patient enough, supportive enough, she'd soften. 40 years later, I died waiting. Marcus is different. He has her intelligence, thank God, but he has his grandmother's heart. She was a kind woman, my mother. She would have liked you. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from Catherine. I'm sorry I didn't protect Marcus. I'm sorry I spent 4 decades being too afraid to stand up to my own wife. The money I'm leaving you isn't about guilt or obligation. It's about giving you choices. Choices I never had because I married into the Sterling family and let them consume me. Choose differently than I did. Choose happiness. Choose love, if you can find it. Choose freedom. And please, if you can, help my son find those things too. He deserves better than the example I set. With regret and hope, Robert Sterling. Elena read the letter twice, then handed it to Marcus silently. He read it with tears streaming down his face. When he finished, he just sat there holding the letter, crying quietly. He tried, Marcus finally said. At the end, he tried. Yes, he did. I wasted so much time being angry at him for being weak, but I was just as weak. I let Mom control me the same way she controlled him. You got out, He never did. Marcus looked at her. Because of you. You fought back when no one else would. I had help. Your dad, Sarah, Amy, Diane, Jessica even. But you started it. You refused to be broken. Elena thought about that, about the night she'd found Jessica's medical records, about standing in that nursery, 7 months pregnant, her whole world collapsing, about the choice she'd made in that moment, not to give up, not to let Catherine win. I had to fight, Elena said quietly, for her. She gestured to Charlotte, who was busy trying to climb onto the couch. I couldn't let my daughter grow up thinking it's okay to let people control you, or that power and money matter more than truth and love. Is it working? Elena smiled. Ask me in about 17 years. Marcus laughed, then his expression turned serious. Elena, I know I have no right to ask this. I know I've already asked for more than I deserve, but don't. Just let me, but Marcus, if you're about to ask me to get back together, the answer is no. He stopped, looked at her. No, I'm not ready. Maybe I'll never be ready. What your mother did, what you allowed to happen, it broke something in me. I'm still trying to figure out how to put it back together. I understand. But, Elena continued slowly, I'm not saying no forever. I'm saying not yet. I need more time. We both do. You need to keep building this new life you're creating. And I need to figure out who I am without being Mrs. Marcus Sterling. So what do? We keep doing this. Weekly visits, co-parenting, being friends maybe, and we see what happens. Marcus nodded, disappointment and hope warring on his face. I can work with maybe. Charlotte finally succeeded in climbing onto the couch. She stood there, proud of herself, and promptly fell off. Both parents moved instantly. Elena got there first, scooping up their daughter and checking for injuries. Charlotte wailed dramatically despite being completely unhurt. You're okay, baby. You're okay. Boo-boo? Charlotte sniffled. No boo-boo, just scared. Marcus kissed Charlotte's head. My brave girl, gonna be a climber this one. God help us, Elena muttered. They spent the afternoon like a family, reading books, playing in the yard, eating sandwiches on the porch while Charlotte napped in the sun. It was normal, comfortable, almost like the life Elena had imagined when she'd first married Marcus. But different too. Built on honesty instead of illusions, earned instead of assumed. As Marcus prepared to leave that evening, he hesitated at the door. I have something to tell you. I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but I was nervous. What? Catherine wrote me a letter from prison. It arrived last week. Elena felt her chest tighten. What did she say? She wants me to visit. Says she needs to talk to me about something important regarding the family trust. Are you going? Marcus shook his head. No. I wrote back saying I'd consider visiting when she apologizes to you, Jessica, and every other person she hurt. Until then, she can sit in that cell and think about what she did. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. You're really not going. I'm really not going. I'm done letting her manipulate me. He paused. She also sent a letter for Charlotte, for when she's older. I didn't open it. I figured that should be your decision. Burn it. You sure? I'm sure. Whatever Catherine wants to say to my daughter, it's nothing good. Charlotte can decide for herself if she wants contact when she turns 18. Until then, that woman stays out of our lives. Marcus nodded. I'll burn it tonight. After he left, Elena sat on the porch with Diane while Charlotte played with her toys inside. They could see her through the window, safe and happy in her little world. He's different, Diane observed. Yes. Do you think you'll give him another chance? Elena was quiet for a long time. I don't know, Mom. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks we've been through too much, that some things can't be fixed. And the rest of you? The rest of me remembers why I fell in love with him in the first place, and wonders if maybe we both needed to fall apart to become the people we were supposed to be. Diane put her arm around her daughter. Whatever you decide, I'm here. You know that, right? I know. They sat together watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. Inside, Charlotte sang to herself in that wordless toddler way. A perfect moment of peace. Elena's phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. Final testimony in Thomas Hayes' trial tomorrow. They're calling you as a witness. Can you make it back to New York? Elena stared at the message. She'd spent the last year trying to move past everything that had happened, building a new life out here in Montana, far from the city and the Sterlings and all the pain. But some things couldn't be run from. Some things had to be faced head on. She typed back, "I'll be there." The federal courthouse in Manhattan looked exactly as Elena remembered. Cold, imposing, built to intimidate. She stood on the steps, Charlotte on her hip, Diane beside her. Sarah met them at the entrance. "You ready?" Sarah asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." The courtroom was packed. Thomas Hayes sat at the defense table, looking older and grayer than Elena remembered. His lawyers surrounded him like sharks, expensive suits and cold eyes. Elena took the stand and was sworn in. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Lisa Chen, approached with a gentle smile. "Ms. Morgan, thank you for being here today. I know this isn't easy." "It's fine." "Can you tell the court about your relationship with Thomas Hayes?" Elena took a deep breath. Thomas was Catherine Sterling's personal attorney. He helped her orchestrate the plan to frame me for embezzlement. Over the next hour, Elena walked the court through everything. The prenup, the fake bank transfers, the offshore account in her mother's name, the police showing her security footage that wasn't really her. "Did Thomas Hayes know these charges were false?" Lisa asked. "Yes, he told Catherine in my presence that he'd manufactured the evidence. He said the bank footage showed someone dressed like me, not actually me. He said the IP logs could be faked. He knew everything was a lie." Thomas's lawyer stood. "Objection. Hearsay." "Your Honor, we have recordings of these conversations," Lisa said. "Recorded legally under New York one-party consent laws. I'd like to enter them into evidence." The judge allowed it. The courtroom listened to Catherine's voice, cold and calculating, discussing how to frame Elena. Thomas's voice agreeing, suggesting which banks would be easiest to manipulate, which accounts to use. When the recording ended, the jury looked disgusted. Thomas's lawyer tried to discredit Elena on cross-examination, suggested she'd manipulated the recordings, implied she was bitter about her divorce and looking for someone to blame. But Elena didn't break. She answered each question calmly, factually. She let the evidence speak for itself. When she stepped down from the stand, she felt lighter, like she'd finally put down a weight she'd been carrying for 2 years. The verdict came 3 days later. Guilty on all counts. Thomas Hayes was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. His law license was revoked. His assets were frozen to pay restitution to his victims. Elena sat in the courtroom and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a quiet sense of completion. It was finally truly over. After the sentencing, Elena walked out of the courthouse into bright September sunshine. Marcus waited on the steps. He'd flown in from Montana for the verdict. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Empty, relieved, ready to go home." Home to Montana, home to Montana. They walked together to where Diane waited with Charlotte. Their daughter squealed when she saw Marcus and reached for him. "Dada!" Marcus took her, spinning her around until she giggled. "There's my girl! Did you miss me?" "Miss!" Elena watched them together. Father and daughter, two people who loved each other completely, uncomplicated by history or hurt. "I've been thinking," Marcus said carefully, "about what you said, about not being ready." "Marcus, just listen. I'm not asking you to get back together. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know I'll wait, however long it takes, and if you decide you can never forgive me, I'll understand that too. But I'll always be here, for Charlotte, and for you, if you want me." Elena looked at him, really looked at him. The man who'd been too weak to stand up to his mother. The man who'd let her be framed and threatened and nearly destroyed. But also the man who'd finally found the courage to fight back. The man who'd testified against his own mother. The man who drove 8 hours every weekend to read books to his daughter. People could change. That was the hardest lesson Elena had learned. People could be weak and selfish and then, with enough pain and motivation, become something better. "I'm not ready yet," she said quietly. "But maybe someday. Keep asking." Marcus's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "I can do that." They flew back to Montana that afternoon. Diane dozed in her seat. Charlotte played with her stuffed rabbit. Marcus and Elena sat across the aisle from each other, occasionally catching each other's eyes and smiling. The farmhouse looked perfect in the late afternoon light. Home, real, solid, safe. Over the next months, life settled into a rhythm. Marcus visited every weekend. Sometimes he stayed in the guest house. Sometimes, when he'd worked a particularly long week, Elena let him crash on the couch. Charlotte turned too. She was talking in full sentences now, asking endless questions, declaring her opinions with toddler certainty. "Dada stay?" she asked one evening when Marcus prepared to leave. "Not tonight, sweetheart." "But why?" The eternal toddler question. Marcus looked at Elena. Elena looked back. "Because mommy's not ready for daddy to stay yet," Marcus said honestly. "But maybe someday." "When someday?" "When mommy's ready." Charlotte considered this, then turned to Elena with devastating toddler logic. "You ready now?" Elena laughed. "Not yet, baby, but I'm working on it." "Work faster." "I'll try." That night, after Charlotte was in bed and Marcus had driven away and the house was quiet, Elena sat on the porch and thought about the last 2 years. About everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained. She'd lost her marriage, her trust, her illusions about money and power protecting people from pain. But she'd gained herself back, had remembered who she was before the penthouse and designer clothes and charity galas, had learned she was strong enough to fight for what mattered, had proven she wouldn't let anyone, not even a billionaire matriarch, control her or her daughter. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Thank you for letting me be part of Charlotte's life, for giving me chances I don't deserve. I know you're not ready yet, but I'm here whenever you are. Love, M." Elena stared at the text for a long time, then for the first time in 2 years, she wrote back, "I'm not ready yet, but I'm getting closer. Keep being the man you're becoming. The rest will figure itself out. E." She hit send before she could second guess herself. Then she went inside, checked on her sleeping daughter, and went to bed. Tomorrow was Sunday. Diane was making pancakes. Charlotte would demand to help and make a huge mess. Marcus would arrive with more books and probably a new toy he couldn't resist buying. It was a normal, ordinary, beautiful life. The life she'd fought for. The life she'd earned. And for the first time since that terrible night when she'd found Jessica's medical records, Elena fell asleep feeling genuinely at peace. Epilogue. 3 years later, Elena stood in her kitchen making coffee while Charlotte helped Diane frost cupcakes for her 5th birthday party. The doorbell rang. Elena opened it to find Marcus holding a wrapped present and flowers. "Happy birthday to our girl," he said. "Dada!" Charlotte ran to him, frosting covered and grinning. Marcus scooped her up, not caring about the mess. "How's my birthday girl?" "I'm 5. You're ancient. Soon you'll be older than me." Charlotte giggled. "That's silly, Dada." The party was perfect. Charlotte's friends from kindergarten ran wild in the yard. Adults stood around eating cake and making small talk. Diane held court telling embarrassing stories about Elena as a child. As the sun set and parents collected their sugar-high children, Charlotte climbed into Elena's lap. "Best birthday ever," she declared. "I'm glad, baby. Can Dada stay tonight?" Elena and Marcus exchanged a look. Over the last 3 years, he'd slowly become part of their family again. Not in the penthouse, billionaire way, in the real way, showing up, being present, doing the work. 2 months ago, Elena had told him she was ready to try again. Really try. They'd been taking it slow, dates, long phone calls, carefully rebuilding trust. "Maybe," Elena said. "Would you like that?" "Yes. Then we're a real family." "We're already a real family, sweetheart. Families come in all different shapes." "But I want Dada here all the time, not just weekends." Marcus knelt down beside them. "How about we take it one day at a time? Would that be okay?" Charlotte thought about this with exaggerated seriousness. "Okay, but tomorrow, can we take another day?" "Yes, we can take as many days as Mommy needs." That night, after Charlotte was asleep and Diane had gone to the guest house and Marcus was getting ready to drive back to his place, Elena stopped him at the door. "Stay," she said. Marcus froze. "What?" "Stay tonight, tomorrow, the next day, all the days if you want to." Elena took his hand. "I'm ready. Not for perfect, not for fairy tales, but for real, for this." For us. Are you sure? I'm sure. Marcus pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I won't let you down again. You might. People make mistakes, but I trust that you'll keep trying. That's enough. They stood there in the doorway of the farmhouse, the Montana stars bright overhead, holding each other like people who had survived a war and found their way home. Because they had.